Thank you for tuning in to another video. My name is Saman Habibi from the DR Real Estate Group, and today we're going to be talking about how to find the right tenants. This channel is dedicated towards investors. So, as an investor, you likely have some tenants that you have to place in your investment properties. So I'm going to go through, my 5 key criterias or techniques that I use to try and find, the right tenant for my property. Knock on wood, haven't had, much trouble. Of course, dealing with tenants, there's always that unknown, but there are ways that you can essentially try to, mitigate and eliminate your risks involved in placing a tenant. So I'm going to talk to you about what I do, for myself and for my clients in order to try to find the right tenant for our investment properties. So the first thing I like to do is make sure that the property that I'm taking the tenants to show is clean. So I'm talking about the outside, the inside, everything about the property. I want it to show well because I essentially want to show the tenants, this is how I treat my property. This is how my clients are treating their property. And as a result, we want you to treat this property the same. So typically with this, I ask my investor clients to get it clean on their own, hire a cleaner. If they need recommendations, I recommend a cleaner that comes and cleans the property for them. Typically on a traditional, bungalow, 2-unit bungalow, the cleaning could be anywhere from $150 to $300, $350, depending on, if there's a lot of work from the previous tenant that needs to be done. But to me, it's a small investment that goes a long way. Again, it creates that first impression that we respect this place and we want our tenants to respect the place as well. So next, once the property is ready, it's time to get the property ready for lease and get it listed on the market. Typically, what I like to do is I like to go 2 ways. I like to list the property on the MLS, and I also like to list the property off market. I do this because there's different pools of tenants out there. Not every single tenant is working with a real estate agent. However, there are some tenants who don't have time to look on their own and prefer to work with a real estate agent. So that's why both those avenues, creates a larger pool of potential tenants who may be interested in your property. So once the property is listed on the market, what I like to do before showing the property to anyone is get them to complete a Google Forms. I've created a standardized Google Forms that I use on every single property, and essentially it's one piece of document that gets all the necessary information that I need to determine if this potential tenant is a right fit or not. So it asks for information such as number of adults, number of children, number of cars, employment status, are they full-time employed, are they self-employed, how many cars they have, can they provide a credit score, can they provide an employment letter. So this essentially lets me know what kind of tenants I'm dealing with. Are they going to be, well-organized tenants, or do they not have any of this information? As a result, if they don't have this information, is it going to be hard for me to make a decision? Once I have all this information, I scan through it. If it passes my gut check, if I feel like this is going to be a right fit, then I'll proceed with showing the property. But if I take a look at the property and there's too many adults for the size of the home, there's too many kids for the size of the home, and it's just not going to be a right fit with one of the other tenants, then I essentially don't even bother going to the next phase of showing the property. This is a way for me to make sure that my time is not wasted and my, landlord's time is not wasted, but also the tenant's time is not wasted as well. So once I've vetted who I like to take to the property, I proceed with doing showings at the property. Once I get to the property, I give a tour of the property, ask them how they like it, what they like, if there's any reservations that they have. And the reservation part is really important because, if it's a thought that they have in the back of their mind that they're not going to like about this property, then I want to be able to have an opportunity to address this. So, if perhaps it's a misunderstanding, it's discussed and maybe that risk is kind of eliminated. So it's people may look at it as a negative conversation to have, but I kind of look at it as a positive because we want to make sure that if there's anything that we can resolve before them leaving the property, we do that right away. Also at the showing, I want to confirm some of the information that they gave me on the Google form. So, I want to ask again how many adults they're going to have, how many kids they're going to have, if they have any pets, what their employment status is. I essentially want to make sure I ask these questions just so I can ensure that they didn't lie or they didn't provide me, misinformation on the Google forms. And it's just another layer of security to make sure that the person we're dealing with is the right person and everything that they've told us so far is truthful. So once all that is taken care of and it's time to draft an offer, I make sure that any offer that is drafted is always conditional, and it's always conditional on me as a landlord representative doing a reference check. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that, okay, let's get the offer on paper, let's get the deposit in hand. Once I have the deposit in hand, then I do my reference check. So what do I do with a reference check? I call their employer, I call their previous landlord. With the employer, what I like to do is I like to confirm all the information that's on the employment letter that I've received. So what was the date of the employment letter that was written? Who's the employee that they've written the employment letter for? What kind of employment status are they on? Are they part-time? Are they full-time? What is their hourly rate? And what is their net pay on the most recent pay stub? And this is all the information that HR should have available and should be able to provide to you. If they're not able to provide it to you, then what you can do is you can give them the number and you can, or the data, and you can get them to confirm. But what I like to always do is try and see if I can get the information from the HR representative so I can confirm what's on the employment letter. And some people may say that, well, you know, how is HR going to give this information out? Well, HR has agreed to put that information on an employment letter. So if they're comfortable doing that, then they should be comfortable, you know, providing that information to you so you can inform, so you can confirm what's on the employment letter. I also like to call the landlord to make sure, you know, to try and get a sense of if the landlord had a good experience with the tenant or not. You know, I ask for, again, I try and confirm some of the details that were given to me on the Google form. So how many adults, how many children, how many pets, how many cars, so on, just to see if the story lines up. Okay, so now that the reference check is all done, I want to make sure that I also include a Schedule A, which is an additional terms document in the lease agreement. When you work with me, you get a additional terms that has been drafted by a paralegal. It's 27 pages in length. It's fairly extensive. It covers all bases, and it pretty much tries to make sure that there are no, you know, stones unturned. So it talks about, for example, appliances, how many appliances are being provided, how many parking spots are being provided, what kind of access the tenant has to the front yard, backyard, side yard, if there's any, are there any sheds on the property, do the tenants have access to the shed? You know, what are the rules and responsibilities of the tenant regarding the property? If there are any damages to the property, what do they do? If there are any changes they like to make, what do they do? What are the smoking rules? What are the pet rules? Are there any pet deposits? Are there any key deposits? So it's a very intense document that goes over, you know, the various aspects of the lease. And again, like I said, this has been drafted by a paralegal. It does not contradict the RTA, so you'll never run into any issues in the event that you have to, you know, provide these documents to the LTB. It's supposed to be, you know, another schedule that protects you as a landlord. As we know, you know, landlords don't have many rights here. So what we like to do is we like to make sure that on day one, we've done all the right things to be able to protect ourselves and the landlords in this agreement. So those are the 5 key things I like to do before finding and placing a tenant for myself, for my clients. It's worked out really well for me, as I mentioned. You know, I never want to make a blanket statement saying that if you do this, it's always going to work out. You always need to get a feel for the tenant that you're interviewing, that you're taking on. So, you know, still do your best to do your due diligence to determine if there's anything else that you can do. But these 5 steps have worked well for me, and I wanted to share it with you guys, and hopefully you get some valuable information out of this. If you have any questions about this scenario or what I do, please drop them in the comment section below. And if you've gained any valuable information, if you can please like and subscribe to this video, to this channel, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions, please let me know.